Hello and welcome to our second installment of the Barnabas Factor that we're studying here on Wednesday night here at our church services. So good to see you on Facebook or YouTube, and thank you for joining us. Last week we ended with this slide for our class. It says, "Be an encourager. The world has plenty of critics already." So this week we are going to see how we need to not be that critic, and learn how to start becoming the encourager that we need to be. So tonight we're going to look at the attitude of an encourager. So when we think about being the attitude of an encourager, we don't want to look like the little boy right there and say, "Oh man, do I got to do this?" Or do we want to be like maybe this mom, or it could be a teacher, being the happy encourager, showing a positive attitude and wanting to do something to make the person better around us. So when you think of an encourager or someone that has encouraged you, who do you think of? Do you think of parents? Do you think of grandparents? Do you think of a teacher? Maybe it's a coach, or maybe it's just other friends around you. Our list of encouragers can be very long and diverse, but all the individuals we mentioned know how to encourage. So let's look at this word, encourage, and what it can be defined as. It can be defined in several different ways. It could mean to give courage, hope, or give confidence. It could mean to help, just to give support. And each one of those that we mentioned, parents, grandparents, teachers, coaches, they do those things. They give us or build us up with courage and hope. They instill confidence in us to get the task at hand done. They help us along the way by giving and sharing advice with us. They support us in many ways. It could be physically, it could be mentally, it could even be financially, or it could be just spiritually. When we think of encouragers in our lives, we know they have the right attitude and outlook on life. They want to build people up. They want to give that support. And that's what makes them that great encourager, their attitude. This is where we will spend our focus this week, on the attitude of the encourager. Brother Johnson, in his book, The Barnabas Factor, that we're studying out of, dedicates the first section of his book to figuring out the attitude of the encourager. He breaks it down into 4 simple sections. Encouragement is a biblical ministry. The power of courage, the problem of discouragement, and the possibilities of encouragement. So we're going to look at this first one for a brief few moments. Encouragement is a biblical ministry. All humans, all of us in this room, all of you there on Facebook, are social creatures, whether you like it or not. Some of you might say, "No, I don't like to be around someone or anyone at this particular time," but you know that isn't the truth all the time. At some point in your lives, yes, we like our freedom and our downtime, whether it be on the back porch swing, down in our basement, or maybe a man cave, or just strolling around Target by yourself, looking for maybe things that you don't need. Yes, we need our own time and space. But most of the time, we crave and need the time with others around us. We just can't stay in that bubble away from everybody and think we'll be okay. Because Brother Johnson covers this in his book when he discusses prolonged isolation, and it can be very damaging and painful to the mind. So if you think about it, when you hear about something, maybe the cellmate, maybe the jail inmate that goes into solitary confinement, it isn't for their own good. It is to take them away from the things they love. So we need to see when people come together, it is an encouragement in a positive way. Bringing people together for, just a group, maybe our life groups, maybe just a social group, fellowship, whatever it may be, it is supposed to have a positive effect on everyone that comes. A person's self-esteem usually improves when people are around one another, encouraging and lifting one another up. When we talk about someone lifting someone up, we don't need to think too hard. We just need to think about Jesus Christ and how many people that he came in encounter with and encouraged with him an encouraging word. It could have been just the woman at the well. It could have been Peter walking on the water and saying, "You can do it." It could have been James and John when they were down there fishing and said they couldn't catch it. "Go catch some more. It'll be there." Jesus was all about relationships, and that's why Brother Johnson points this out in his book, and he quotes this: Christianity is a relationship religion. He also states this: encouragement is the chief element in all good personal relationships. You know, we have many examples in the Bible of godly encouragers. Moses encourages Joshua in Deuteronomy 3, 27 and 28. Hezekiah encourages the people of Jerusalem in 2 Chronicles 32, 6 through 8. Paul encourages so many followers throughout the New Testament, especially the many churches that he wrote to, the numerous letters there at the end of the New Testament. One example is there in the book of Colossians 2 in verse 1 and 2. The Bible is filled with examples of encouragement. It also contains direct commands for us to encourage. Let's look at those. 1 Thessalonians 5 and 11 says, therefore encourage one another and build one another up just as you are doing. The next one we need to look at, Hebrews 3 and 13. But exhort one another every day as long as it is called today, that none of you may be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. Brother Johnson wrote and published this book, The Barnabas Factor, way back in 2014. Excuse me, 2004. Many years ago, 18 years ago. On page 21 of his book, he makes the following statement. Clearly, the Bible was written and preserved as a source of encouragement for all ages. Yet never has the need for encouragement been greater than for today. Again, he wrote that in 2004, saying how the need for encouragement was needed at that time. You know what? 18 years ahead, 2022, we still need that encouragement. 18 more years into the future, they're still going to need that encouragement. 18 more years into the future, they're still going to need that encouragement. He wrote that statement, again, 18 years ago. And my point is, we're always going to need encouragement. And yes, it may change some with the times, but the overall goal is to go back to our definition and provide all those different things to individuals and those around us that need encouragement. Many people in the world want to belong to something, and they want to be part of it. The desire to do something is great in many individuals, whether it be on a sports team, whether it be a dance team, a club, or whatever social activity it is. It gives the individual that sense of belonging. You know, think of this. What about someone that doesn't get into the good crowd? What do? Well, they may go looking to be in something else just to belong. For example, what about the unprivileged kid that doesn't have anything better to do? The opportunities aren't there for some reason. Another kid comes up to them and says, hey, why don't you come join our crowd for today? See some of my friends. Well, maybe you see where I'm going. That kid ends up in a gang or maybe a group. That is bad news. They lie, they steal, they cheat, they get caught, and they end up being put in jail. Well, that individual was encouraged to belong, even though it was with the wrong crowd. And we'll deal with that a little bit more later. You get the picture, though. We want to belong, and we want to be included and encouraged. We need to make sure we are doing that for the Lord's church here in Franklin. The next section of his book is the power of courage. So let's look at that. All of us have our flaws, and all of us have our hurdles we face in our life. But if we really think about it, we just need to follow Paul's advice and make sure we don't get stuck without having courage. He quotes this, he says this in 2 Timothy verses 1 and 7. It says, for God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. God does give us the spirit to not be fearful of things, but have the power to stand up with love and have self-control during the tough times of life. He provides us with the spiritual power for us to conquer the things that we need to conquer. Brother Johnson states this and attacks this on page 27 of his book when he says this. Courage is the inner capacity that enables a person to move ahead towards meaningful goals and objectives in life. It is not the absence of fear, but the stamina to continue the course despite potential debilitating fears. We see this in many examples of biblical heroes who showed us real courage is and how it is best used to stand up to face the adversities in life that they were facing. Moses encouraged Joshua. We already stated that one. Again, he did that in Deuteronomy 31:6. Daniel had so much courage because of his relationship with God. Daniel 2:48. And without courage, we will not accomplish our goals and standard of life. When we go through the tough times, when we don't lean on courage to get us through, then we could fall into a pit of despair and misery that could be hard for us to get out of. You know, I think of many individuals that I know that I have come across that have not been able to face courage head on. And it has maybe cost them their job, their spouse, their families, and in some cases their lives. All of us need to have courage daily because we're in the lion's den just like Daniel. Daily we're in that lion's den. Having the courage to do things in our lives is made possible because we have a true and faithful belief in God, and that is right there with us. Moving forward, being positive and keeping the negative things in the rearview mirror help us keep our attitudes and beliefs in check. When we have that positive attitude, positive things are going to happen to us. If we have that negative attitude, just like we said last week, you know what? We're going to have negative things that will follow us and just overwhelm us sometimes. If you're being that courageous person with a positive outlook on the things in your life, then it will help you how to cope with that confidence and cope with the certain things that might arise and might try to bump you off track. That's what confidence is giving you. That's what that courage is giving you, that confidence to do those things better. Even when you're faced with a dark moment in your life, if you're being the strong and courageous person, you will always see the light at the end of the tunnel. Also, the courageous Christian has faith to fall back on as well. Brother Johnson states this. He says, faith is courage enhancing. Faith dispels fear and imparts courage. Psalms 56:3 says, when I am afraid, I put trust in you. And God promises us in the Bible that nothing is impossible without him. We all know this scripture verse so well. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. The Christian has the confidence in God that he will be there for them, with them, and in everything they do. Having courage enables the Christian to do the things others might not have the power to do because they lack confidence or self-esteem or conviction to follow through on God's will. Think about these characters, if you would. What about if Abraham wouldn't have followed through on his faith and took Isaac up to the top of the mountain because his courage was shaken? What about Noah? He may have not nailed that first nail in the gopher wood if he didn't have the courage to believe in what God said. What about David? He might have been stepped on by Goliath and taken very easily, but he had the courage to go over there and pick up those 5 little rocks. But also the opposite's true. Not having that courage can lead one down to a path that is hard to recover from, and we talked about that. It's disappointment to the service to God, because some biblical characters did that. We know of Aaron. Aaron gave in to the mob because he didn't have the confidence in Moses or God. Pilate gave in to the crowd, even though he knew Jesus probably didn't do nothing wrong. He gave in to him. Peter didn't have the courage to stand up for Jesus, and he denied him not once, not twice, but we know he denied him 3 times. You can truly see the good and bad ways courage can have effects on one's life. We said it earlier in our lessons that individuals will have their good and they will have their bad days. There are just some days we have more courage than others. Peter was an example of this in the Bible because we just saw that. He had several ups and downs. He was good one day, he was bad the next day. Had those ups and downs. He struggled with it, just like we can. All of us need to be careful of a few things that Brother Johnson points out in his book on page 32. He warns about individuals having self-satisfaction and self-absorbance because both can be mortal enemies of courage. However, he does say this: individuals who have a great deal of self-acceptance have a great outlook on mental and spiritual health that gives them a strong desire to grow more spiritually. The heart and soul of encouragement is courage. When ordinary individuals become strong and convicted of the things that they are doing, they will accomplish a lot of different things in their lives. They will overcome those bad attitudes, misunderstood beliefs, and negative outlooks on life to rise above all the negatives and have a more fulfilling and positive outlook in their lives. The next section of the book is the problem of discouragement, or what to do about discouragement. If someone reaches this point in their life, then the person has either chosen this path consciously or unconsciously because they feel like there is little or no hope. When an individual reaches a state of hopelessness, they reach a state of having an inability to make positive choices in their lives. They have given up the means to look for the right things and they want to just find all the negative things around them. They don't want to try to encourage themselves. They have fallen into a state of misery and despair, and if someone reaches this negative state, then it is highly likely that they have pushed others away from them because no one wants to hang around them and be discouraged. Who wants to do that? Their unpleasant personality has driven their friends, their family members away from them. The person who is very discouraged has that "oh, woe is me" problem. They want to think that everything and everyone around them is out to get them and that their life is just unfair. There are several things that can cause discouragement in an individual. But the two most common things are misfortune and mistakes. Misfortunes are things that just happen to individuals because their own faults or problems, or the things may have not been their own fault or their own problem. One biblical example of this is Joseph. You think about it, he had some misfortunes in life, but nothing was really his fault. His brothers didn't like him. The king did like him and didn't like him, but that wasn't his fault. That was the wife's fault. And on and on. He had a lot of misfortunes. But through it all, Joseph never lost that faith or that hope in God. Mistakes might happen. Mistakes are things in one's life when individuals just mess up or make the wrong choices to lead to other problems. One biblical example of this is Judas. We know that story very well. The one bad decision that he made discouraged him and caused him to make another bad decision that ultimately cost him his life. I have one question for you at this point in the lesson. Do you always know when you discourage someone? I know I sure don't. I've recently found out that I have discouraged someone, and I had no idea that I have done that because it was unintentional. Being insensitive can be a form of discouragement. You might not think you're doing this, but you really could be without knowing it. If you're not listening or paying attention to a person around you, you at that is being very insensitive and ultimately discouraging to that person you're around. Some of us in this room might be discouraging someone because you're just too intimidating. You think, I'm not too intimidating. Well, you might not think of that yourself that way, but it could be happening to the others around you. Maybe it's someone that drives a lesser vehicle than you do. Or maybe it's someone that comes over to your house and you're starting to show things off and this and this and this, and they might not be able to afford those things, or they might think, well, maybe I need to do that, and maybe I need to keep up with the Joneses. You might not ever know it, but you may be intimidating someone unintentionally, and that is a form of discouragement. Said this a while ago, I'm going to say it one more time. Have you ever not wanted to listen directly to someone, or you just wanted to ignore them? Ignoring someone can be a form of discouragement. If you don't want to listen to someone or you just don't respond to them, you give them the silent treatment, that may totally upset or deflate someone's pride and personality. So how can we defeat these discouraging things and learn to become more encouraging? Here are a few suggestions from Brother Johnson. Rather than criticize, compliments. Rather than browbeat, express belief. Establish realistic standards for others' performances and affirm your confidence in their abilities. Instead of shielding someone, equip them with tools and confidence to succeed. Instead of neglecting or overlooking people, acknowledge and appreciate them. Christians can accomplish this by doing several different things. Faith, prayer, and fellowship. First, faith. Share your faith with others and show them the encouragement you have through Jesus Christ and what he has done for you, your life, and your family. When you see someone that is discouraged, don't leave them in the dark. Bring them over and pray over them. Pray with them or just pray for them. Fellowship. You know, we all love being together, eating and sharing. I love our life group. We had a good life group the other night. We was outside sharing with one another, talked about the Bible lesson, and then it got late and we was like, oh, we need to go home. Our fellowship just kept going on and on. That was great. Discouragement is that bad word. Let's get back to it just for a second. It's seen in the Bible, but none more noteworthy than the example we see in the book of Numbers. Numbers 21:4 says, from Mount Horah, they set out by the way to the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom, and the people became impatient on their way. You know, as Moses and their Israelites traveled from Mount Sinai to Canaan, the group found out very quickly that it was a very difficult one. As they finished their journey, Moses set out 12 spies to see what the land looked like and if they could do anything about it, if anything stood in their way. And we know the stories. All the spies came back very discouraged and afraid of what lied ahead. But 2 did not give in to that discouragement. Joshua and Caleb went out again and scout the same land and same things as the spies, but they had faith and belief in God that he would help them conquer the land that was promised to them. They found a solution to the problem. And we know the rest of the story as they went and won the battle for the land and did all in the presence of God. Discouragement. Back to that point earlier that I said we was going to get to. Discouragement is a tool of the devil, and we need to remember that. He wants to discourage the Christian in any way. He does not want the Christian to succeed. He's going to try to use discouragement to pull people apart, pull their relationships apart, pull their courage down, pull their self-esteem down. All in all, trying to tear someone up. He wants to deprive one's heart and soul of the faith that God has instilled in all of us. Brother Johnson states this: discouragement is a heart attack in the truest sense of the word. Our physical hearts pump blood to vital organs in our bodies to keep us alive. Our spiritual hearts then need to pump courage throughout to keep the positive things positive and us passionate to serve and honor God with our lives. So the next thing in the book, in this section, the final part of it, is the possibilities of encouragement. When a person stays positive, anything is possible and will more than likely produce good fruits towards whatever lies ahead. If we have encouragement, it can help us do a few things for another person. It can maybe help us change a person's day if we're encouraging to them. It could maybe help us change their outlook on life if they're having discouragements. It may help them change how they react to us or others around us. Encouragement makes us feel great. One point from last week is, I said, if you're encouraging someone in your life, you are probably have been encouraged by someone else. You have seen it. You have been encouraged and you're passing it on down to the next person. Kind of like the drive-through thing. Have y'all ever had the drive-through thing happen to you? You pay for your meal, maybe pay for someone else. I went through a drive-through one time and someone had done that, and the chain kept on going. And I think the cashier up there said, this has been going on for like an hour and a half. That was so encouraging and fun to be a part of. We need to inspire others to be great. We remember or know the phrase, you remember and know the phrase, leave it better than you found it. Well, that statement can go a long way with courage and maybe just a little bit slightly different. We need to leave people better than we find them. If they're happy, then we need to leave them happier. If they're down in the dumps, don't leave them there. Get them out. If they're having a rough day, make it a little easier on them. If they're just okay, then make them better. Encouragement can be a great thing, and tremendous possibilities associated with it. Excuse me. In Brother Johnson's book, he goes into greater detail about the possibilities of encouragement, and I'd like to highlight a few of those things as we wrap up tonight's lesson. Encouragement zones. He talks about encouragement zones in his book. Zones are anywhere you encounter people and how you act in those locations. That's anywhere we go, right? Work, church, school, out in public. How do you act when you encounter individuals? Encouragement starts with you. It starts with us. When we go into these zones, we can be better prepared. That's when we leave our house. Step out the door. Maybe it even is at our house. How are we encouraging one another at home? Encouragement zones are everywhere around you as soon as you wake up. We encounter obstacles. There are several different obstacles that get in our way when we are trying to be encouraging to others. There's social definitions, there's seclusion, there's low self-esteem, there's lack of experience, and inadequate commitment all play roles in these obstacles. We need to be on the lookout for these obstacles and make sure that they are not a negative issue when we are trying to be a positive encouragement. When society tries to label us one thing, we just need to be ourselves, and we don't need to seclude ourselves or let others do the same. We need to say that we can do it and just give it a try. And we need to feel good about ourselves. And finally, the last one about inadequate commitment, we don't need to give up on the first try. It may take a little bit longer. It may not happen the first time we do it. Don't get discouraged. Keep encouraging someone. Don't let them give in. See that on my baseball team all the time. Try to teach a kid a new swing, or it doesn't go right the first couple times. It might take 50 swings, 100 swings to get it right. Kids have a hard time seeing that, but adults do too. Keep on trying. Get to the next one. Essential to Christianity. Encouragement is desperately needed in the world, and all it can be accomplished is living for Christ. People need encouragement, of course. People crave it, even if they don't think they do. It helps their confidence and their overall self-worth. Last one's a hard one. Motivating the unmotivated. Motivating the unmotivated. Everyone is different, and you must search to find out maybe how it's best to encourage that person or someone. It may be over a fishing hole. It may be just over a cup of coffee. It may be just sitting in their living room. It may be out on the golf course. It may be that car ride out in the country. Some people, this is the other part that's hard. Some people are just sour sometimes. But we need to keep digging a little bit deeper to find that sweetness. Sometimes people just don't want to be motivated. And it's hard to motivate the unmotivated. Maybe you're having trouble with that. But I'm here to encourage you tonight on Facebook, on YouTube, whenever you're watching this. Try to get motivated the best way you can and do it for Jesus Christ. Helping you out in that. In closing out this section of this book, The Attitude of the Encourager, Brother Johnson reminds the reader of 10 things that will help them be more encouraging in their everyday walk of life. So here are these 10 things that he wants us to see. Remember to encourage others the way you would want to be encouraged in their situation. Golden rule, right? Matthew 7:12. Remember that people are inclined to treat you the way you treat them. Luke 6:38. Remember that your time, talent, and treasures are heavenly trusts for encouraging others. Philippians 1:20-25. Remember to prize people above everything except faithfulness to God. Remember that every act of encouragement is an act of love for God. Remember that every act of encouragement is also an act of love for Christ. Matthew 25:40. This one might be one of the toughest ones. Remember that one day you must account for every relationship God has placed in your care. Whew, that's a tough one. How are we treating others around us? 1 Corinthians 4:2. Remember that encouraging is a daily privilege and a responsibility. We already covered that in Hebrews 3:13. Remember that God encourages us so that we may encourage others. 2 Corinthians 1:3-4. And finally, remember that the church assemblies are great opportunities to encourage one another. That's whether we're here on Wednesday night like we are tonight, whether it's Sunday morning, Bible classes, or church services, or maybe it's those life groups that we're starting and with one another there the best we can. Christians need each other, and others need us to be the encouragers that we need to be. You know what that is? That comes from Matthew. We need to be that light of the world. We need to be the encouragers God wants us to be. Next week, we're going to look in the section of the book that starts us to develop better skills to be those better encouragers. Next week, we're going to look at the anatomy of an encourager in our lessons next week. We have a few books left here at church. If you'd like a copy of that, you can get a hold of me, and I'll get you a copy. Books are also available on Amazon.com. You can look those up. It's called The Barnabas Factor by Dr. Aubrey Johnson. If you'd like a copy of that book, I highly recommend adding it to your library. Mr. Johnson, Brother Johnson, came here and spoke to us several weeks ago to our ministry leaders and encouraged us, and we're fixing to get started with that here at church as well. But again, thank you for joining us, and close out in a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for this evening. We thank you for the opportunities of life. We thank you for the words that you give us and what we can do to be better encouragers. Thank you for Brother Johnson and everything that he presents to us in this book, and us being the better Barnabas that we need to be in life, and being the person to outreach and encourage others around us, and also encourage ourselves. Thank you again for this opportunity. In your Son's name we pray. Amen. Everyone have a great evening.